everybody, I'm Blessed and Free. Welcome back to another episode of DOC TV. So this is actually going to be a part 2 to a previous episode that I put out. It was about a prison work camps. I'm going to link that video in the description of this video. If you're new and you're tuning in for the first time, man, on this channel we talk about prison, jail, crime, corruptions. I bring people on that have been to prison. You know, they get to share their story about what they went through because everybody's story is different. If you're interested in coming on the channel and you want to share your story, just email me at doctv813@gmail.com. So in the previous episode, I talked about a lot of the shit that went on in work camps as far as like contraband and how inmates are and how a work camp is different from like a main unit or an annex. At the end of that episode, I started talking about some of the female officers that worked at this work camp. And for people that have been to prison, they already know about all this. But for the people that haven't, in prison, a lot of the corruption comes from the guards. And it either comes with violence, it comes with drugs. And honestly, the guards that I've met in prison, some of the worst guards are the women officers. I don't know why. I don't got no problem with women. Hey, shout out to all the women out there. But in the Florida Department of Corrections, the women are savages, man. And I don't know why that is, honestly. But when I was at the work camp, there was 2 female officers that stick out to me the most. One of their names was Mrs. Nobles. Miss Nobles, if you're watching this, man, I can't stand you. She was one of the worst, man. And this is how bad she was. So she worked night shift in the work camp, and we would all be out on the yard during shift change. And you can see the officers leaving the dorm and the night shift coming in to take over. And when she would walk through the gate, everybody on the yard would stop. Like, you'd be mid pull-up and stop on the bar and be like, what dorm is she going to? For some reason, she started working the dorm that I was in. And we'd see her walk into the dorm, and everybody's like, man, you better get in there and put your shit up. She's fixing to raise hell. And right when she would walk in the dorm, like, she would just start saying dumbass shit. She would be like, okay, I'm here. Everybody put your shit up. Man, she was just on a whole nother level. So we would all run in there, put our shit up, because she loved to search people. And it's crazy because, like, she would be walking around the dorm like a crackhead, eyes all big.
U.S. Marshal, Randy Dunja, you're blowing my cover. Now don't get a damn drug law.
Looking who she's gonna search and shit. She would pick a bunk, and she would go over there, and she would flip your shit. If you didn't have your bed made with a 6-inch cuff or whatever it was, I forget, she would tear your whole fucking sheet off, take everything off your mat, pull your drawer open, take everything out of your drawer, go through all your bottles. You were like the plug, and she was gonna find out where your shit was, type thing. And when she would walk over to your bunk, and if you were on a bottom bunk and she would have to like start searching it, she would like bend over and stick her ass out and do like an air squat to get down low to search your shit. Every bunk she did, she would do this. I mean, it got so bad in the dorm when she used to walk into the dorm and start talking all her rah-rah shit. You'd hear an inmate in the back corner be like, shut the fuck up. She wouldn't know who said it because there's like 70 inmates. But then when she would go to the bunk and she would be trying to get shit on the bottom of the bunk and do her little air squat, everyone would be like, yard open. And they would say that because we just couldn't stand her. Like, it didn't matter what she did, like everything had to have an attitude behind it. Like, she was better than all of us in the dorm. And just to give you guys a picture of what Miss Noble looked like, she was probably like 5'7", probably 110 pounds, bow-legged. She wore this old school big ass red lipstick. She was like a chick taken from like the 80s and put into the 2000s. Her style was crazy. Busted. She looked like she spent most of her life in a bar singing karaoke drunk.
My neck, my back, lick my just like that.
And all the people that like to go to bars and sing karaoke, hey man, do your thing. But Miss Noble's she was like a barfly, man, to really sum it up. Nobody in the dorm could stand her. And then at that camp, there was another female officer that was like her, but not like her. Her name was Miss Stone. And she was another one barfly, looked like she'd been in the bar her whole life, and then kind of got a job at the prison. And well, this is crazy. So she was working the dorm that I was in, and like I didn't have a gate pass, so I never went outside the gate. I would just be in the dorm all day with the housemen and never had to go to work call, or they would call me, but I wasn't allowed to go out, and they would turn me back around and I'd go back to the dorm. So I was chilling for like 7 months doing that. I don't know why they didn't give me a gate pass, whatever the case was, but I would always sleep, like take naps all through the day just to try to ride the time out. And one day, I guess she had called count. And then when they call it, you know, you got to sit up in your bunk. And then they come around, and start counting you. And I was sleeping. And I guess someone tried to wake me up, but I didn't wake up. So she went around the whole dorm and counted. You know, there was probably only like 15 dudes in the dorm because everybody else was out at work. And she counted the whole dorm and then comes over to my bunk. And I'm like sleeping on the bunk. And I wake up and I feel like someone rubbing my shoulders. And I'm like, I turn back around. I'm like, what the fuck? And she woke me up, giving me a massage on my back,
focusing on relaxation and overall well-being.
So I was like, man, this shit's crazy, right? And then there was this dude that slept next to me. He was on the top bunk. And I look up at him and he's just like, bro, what the fuck? So I already knew like she had like a thing for me or whatever, but so she switched to night shift and she was at another dorm. So when they come in for their night shift, they bring mail in and they do mail call. They usually do it during count. So when you're relaxed during count, an officer will come out of the officer station with all your mail and he'll call out all the names. And I knew that my grandfather was sending me some pictures from when he went to Arizona. So I like knew it should be coming, but I didn't hear my name. So after they clear count, I go to the officer station. I'm like, hey, you don't got no mail for me? And they're like, no. And then I guess the dorm she was working in, she radioed the officer and said, hey, I got mail for Josh. So I leave the dorm, walk across the yard, and I go to the other dorm, and she's working in the officer station. So I'm like, I go to the window, and she's like, no, come over here. So I go around to the door. And she's like, wow, you got some nice horses. Because my grandfather went to Arizona to go horseback riding. So I'm like, what are you talking about? She opened up this manila envelope and was going through all the pictures that he sent me. And she's like,
you like to ride horses?
And I'm like, nah, I never really did. Like I rode them a couple times. And she's like,
I bet you could really ride a horse, huh?
And I'm like, damn, this bitch is crazy. I don't know. She was on some whole other shit. And I know a lot of people watching this that have been to prison, and you always hear like when you're in jail, you'll be like, oh, you been to prison before? What camp were you at? They'll be like, Mayo. I'm just giving an example. And I'll be like, oh yeah, that shit's sweet there. And they're like, hell yeah, I was fucking this nurse and she was bringing this in and that in. You can go up to a lot of people and they're going to tell you that, but most of them really ain't hitting it like that. Like they may have wanted to, but like I said, the female officers in there are savages, and a lot of them aren't on that shit. And because they're all related and they work at the prison with their freaking brother and their uncle, so they don't want that shit going around the compound. They're spreading their legs off in the laundry room. So, but this lady, I probably could have closed the deal, but like both of them were just, some swamp donkeys. It's the only way to describe it. And I don't know, for me, man, I don't care if I'm in prison. You'll never hear me in the dorm with some 400-pound CO walking in and people are like, damn, that bitch, oh man, she's an eater, dog. Like that ain't me. Like my standards aren't going to drop just because I'm in prison. So, but a lot of people's do. You'd be surprised how many people develop this like fantasy in their head over officers that wouldn't even give them the time of the day. And really, they shouldn't even be giving the officers the time of the day because they're fucking busted as shit. It's just crazy, man. When you're in there, it's a whole nother world in there. And the people that work there are another example of a whole nother world. Like, it's just hard to explain. For the people that have been, they know what I'm talking about. But I wanted to drop this episode and let y'all hear, what I went through at that camp. And I'm going to have more episodes like this dropping in the future. If you're new, man, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up and turn your post notifications on all. So every time I drop an episode, you can hear it first. And with that, it's DOC TV and I'm out.